Check, quick sound check. Can everybody hear me loud and clear? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Check. Video is good. Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. Let's go ahead and get started, get right into it. Happy Monday, everyone. Thank you for joining. Snowman's a little quiet. I gotta fix his microphone. He doesn't have too much to say, but welcome everyone to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I am Coach Jay. Replacing my partner, Coach Paul, is the Snowman for today. Coach Paul's traveling today for the holidays, so safe travels to you, Coach Paul, if you are listening. But welcome to At the Buzzer, our market recap. If this is your first time here, I'm Coach Jay. Been a Topstep Performance Coach since June of 2023. Been trading for the past 12 years and in the futures markets for the past 5 years. The goal of this segment is to review what happened in the markets for the day. We may talk about some markets that you have not traded before, but we believe our goal as traders is to identify opportunity, see how we could have taken advantage of those opportunities while managing our risk. I know it is holiday time, so we may not go a full hour today, but if you guys do have any questions for me, please put them in the chat. Our wonderful mod Andrew will send those over to me. And we may get out of here a little bit early today. I don't know if anyone has any Christmas shopping to do to complete, but you still got some time. Still got some time. Yeah, this is just in the combine. I did have a good day in XFAs as well. Like I told you guys, I trade my XFAs on Quantower for now. But it was a good day. I want to talk about that a little bit actually. We say, sometimes with the holiday trade and things like that, the markets may not be presenting opportunities. But if we look at a day like today, it is. So let's get right into it. As far as news goes, we did have a durable goods number come out early this morning. Right? Is that correct? Yep. Durable goods number come out 1.1 negative 1.1%. What was forecast was 0.3%. And we had new home sales coming in a little under what was expected, 0.664 million. Expectation was 0.669 million. We also had a consumer confidence number come out lower than expected as well, 104.7. Expectation was 113.2. But these numbers didn't really seem to affect the markets too much. Uh, you know, if we talk about consumer confidence, I went Christmas shopping and consumers seemed pretty confident. Um, there were a bunch of people in the stores, so um, not sure what that number takes into account. But with holiday shopping season around, stores were still pretty busy. Let me know in the chat how your day ended up today. If you traded at all today, do you end up green on the day, red on the day? Maybe not traded because it's holiday time, or if you've traded this time before, right? Some I know we have new traders all the time, and sometimes this might be your first time trading holiday markets. You may hear, it's low volatility, low volume, maybe don't trade. And I kind of lean on the side of that, right? Just going with the expectation that we might not see the biggest moves, but you never know. You never know. Hit profit target and locked it up, platinum and micro Bitcoin. Nice. People are definitely spending money. Yeah, 100%. Now, whether that's money they have or they don't have, that is up in the air, but people are definitely spending money. Um, Traded SPY calls and puts. Okay, green, but worked too hard and overtraded to do it. Yeah, see, and that's the thing, right? I had a green day today as well. I locked myself up, I think, by 11 a.m. Eastern time. But days like today are the days that I found that I can work a lot harder than I need to in trading, because sometimes the volatility slows down. Now we saw a pretty nice trend, and we'll get into the charts in a second. But we saw a pretty nice trend into the second half of the day, at least in the equities. But that's the one thing I'm conscious of, that if I'm green on a day like today where it's holiday time and I kind of just want to get away from the desk anyway, I'm going to take what I did in the morning and consider that a full day. I had some price targets for the S&Ps. We'll talk about what those were. Um, but I didn't trade those because I was kind of just checked out for the day. So the one thing I'll say about holiday trading is if you come to your desk, at least me personally, when I come to my desk, I'm thinking an hour, maybe two max, and then I'm out. And then if anything happens after that, then I did my job. Green and two combines, first time trading holidays here, locked out negative 250 on my XFA. Ended the day in practice up 420. Can you please discuss about various moving average, different color? Yeah, we'll talk about that. What is the minimum to trade futures? Well, at TopStep, minimum to trade is $50 for a 50K account. Um, if you're talking about a personal brokerage account, you at least need, if you're talking about minimum, you could trade, microcurrencies and with probably $250 in your account. I wouldn't suggest it, but that's probably the minimum that you need. All right, but let's get into the charts. There are about 35 different markets we can trade with Top Step accounts, not just the equities. And today, to the downside, we had soybean meal down 1.42%, lean hogs down 1.75%, and micro Bitcoin futures down 2.66% for our biggest percentage mover to the downside. To the upside, we had wheat futures up 1.36%, platinum up 1.54%, and soybean oil, our biggest percentage mover to the upside at 1.91%. Think that broke the streak for nat gas being a top percentage mover, but I can see it down here. Honorable mention, number four to the downside, 1.12%. Nat gas opened up with a pretty, if you look at the percentage move for the day, it was number four. But if you actually look at the movement for the day, nat gas opened with a pretty big gap up and retraced that entire gap. So it was about a 6% move, but we got to account for this gap. I think it opened up with a gap of about 3%. So still one of the bigger percentage movers on any of the markets that we can trade. Um, we don't always fill this Sunday gap, but we usually have a Sunday gap every week in net gas we've been seeing. So a pretty nice move here if you were able to catch any of this. To round out our big four, we had the Nasdaq up 0.78%, the S&Ps up 0.58%, crude oil up 0.13, and where's gold? Gold down 0.68% to round out our big four. Give me 1 second here. Let me just get set up. All right, I'm gonna pull up the equity charts. I'm actually gonna go to the S&P. Do you guys remember the number we talked about in the S&P last week? Pretty much all last week. We started talking about it Wednesday. Anybody remember that number? I know some people probably do, but anyone remember what that price was? We mentioned an order getting filled there on 6040. There we go, Courtney. Mentioned an order getting filled there on Wednesday. 2,500 contracts bid at 6040 when the markets were selling off after that FOMC print. And this was the price target that I had for the S&Ps today. Now, maybe I should have been of a better mind to just trade it. Like I said, I was up decently on the day. I could have doubled my day just trading the same size that I had been. Um, in the Coach J chat, we talked about, I just mentioned when it looked like the S&Ps were starting to break out to the upside, um, right around once we got above 6,000 in the S&Ps. Um, when we see levels when I see levels like this that trade a ton of volume, and again, there's going to be a couple of levels that traded decent volume, but this one sticks out to me because I saw the order there at what was the most volatile time. We could call it almost the most volatile time all year, right? The move that we saw on Wednesday after FOMC was some of the biggest move that we saw all year. And during that, someone throws out a 2,500 lot. I'm not going to ignore that. We can see kind of where the high of the day was today. It was in that same area yesterday. I'm going to keep paying attention to this, right? As we go into the end of the year, people talking about the Santa rally and things like that, we can see that we haven't really spent a lot of time above that 60-40 area, right? So the way I'm kind of reading it, and maybe I'm making up my own story, but if that was a buyer to open a position and maybe they're accumulating inventory below that position, once we start to see some price action above it, some closes above, this may be the base for the rally, right? That's the picture that I'm painting here. Now, is that going to happen? I don't know. Anything can and will happen, but I am not taking I'm not taking this line off my charts, or I'm not taking my eye off of this level until we leave this area significantly, right? So um, watching the price action around here. Also, XPX max pain was 59.75 today, which is about 60.45. Okay, so something's going on in this general area, right? Where whether we're looking at SPX, we're looking at the futures, they're all kind of tied to each other. I'm sure there's some options data that Nick Fortick could speak about around this area as well, but something interesting going on here. I'm gonna keep paying attention to these prices until they're not relevant anymore, and the market's gonna tell us that. Um, if we go back, if we start with last night's open. Take this off. Uh, VWAP never really left the opening 30-minute range. Um, Kind of a choppy overnight session, decent range bound session though, right? We've talked about this where if price leaves the range and volume doesn't, gives you an opportunity to fade extremes. And we had, something similar to the downside today. I don't remember what was down here, but we bounced off. I think it was in the Nasdaq actually. We bounced off of some orders that were up here on Quant Tower. I may pull those up, but just a really nice range bound day, right? Two-sided trade. There was opportunities to take a short even as the New York session started, there was still some price action to the downside. We had a 40-point sell off before we eventually got this bounce. So a really nice trade, right? I don't look at this market and say that these are holiday markets. Low volatility. I'm not going to trade them. There's decent opportunity in this, right? We had from the lows up to the highs, we had a 1.25% move. There's opportunity, and now is that opportunity worth maybe spending time with family, getting some time off the charts and things like that? It depends, right? I think you could trade for a couple of hours in the morning, maybe take one trade and then call it a day, or you know maybe you're not busy with family and things like that and you still want to trade. The markets are presenting some opportunities. Here's the 3-minute opening range in the S&Ps. Kind of a perfect test here of price leaving the range, volume leaving the range. We got a perfect test and rejection of it. Saw some traders call this out in the chat earlier. And a really nice one directional move before we eventually turn around. We do see some of that kind of volume exhaustion move where we have a spike in volume and then it just decreases from that point, and we see the market start to float. Once we get a close above this turnaround candle, right? Could you buy it at the lows because you know that this is the low? You could. That's kind of preempting the reversal, and we've seen where it looks like the market's going to reverse. We get back up to the high of this candle and turn around, but once we start to get some closes above, right, we see how the market respects that area. It uses it as a support, and now we can set our stops anywhere in this. Really nice trade. I think this is a perfect example of not having to preempt uh, a reversal and allowing the market to decide that. What is going on main source? Let's see. Right. And then from that point on, kind of just a rally. 11:48. I'm trying to go back to where I thought, we had the potential to test 60/40. I sent that message in the Coach J chat at 11:48 Eastern time. So right around here. Like I said, we pushed through the opening range. We closed above the high of the opening range. And at this point, I'm looking at, okay, maybe we continue to rally. If there's low volume, we may get this low volume kind of float push up. And it took all day, right? It wasn't a quick move. It wasn't the kind of uh, high volume push that we saw in FOMC, right, where we saw that liquidation. This was kind of just a slow grind up all day. Would have been the easiest trade to hold. I don't think I would have held it, to be honest with you, unless I put the trade on and just said, hey, hit 60/40 or stop me out, or I'll close it at the end of the day. But, a 3-hour hold, not so bad when it, for the most part, moved in one direction. But any questions on the S&Ps? We'll go back out to a 30-minute chart real quick. Yeah. No man has he doesn't have too much to say. The lights are kind of bright for him. He's working on not melting under the lights. So he's just hanging out for now. Um, let's see. What did I have here? Oh, moving averages. Moving averages. We got back above the 200 moving average on the 30-minute. We know how much of a concrete level we've seen this be. We rejected right at it, yes, on Friday. And then today we closed above it, closed above, kind of settled, right? We came back and retested it, retested that 50 and settled above it. I want to go out to a daily really quick because I think on, nope, it was the NASDAQ. Right? I'm going to go over to the NASDAQ real quick. Was it the NASDAQ? One of these markets tested a 20 moving average and bounced from there. But same story in the NASDAQ here. The one thing I'm looking at going into the rest of the week and into the rest of the year, obviously this FOMC candle that we had, the sell-off, we haven't tested 50% of it in the NASDAQ. In the S&P, we have. Right? S&Ps were already closing above on the daily, above that 50%, 60.27. In the Nasdaq, we haven't yet. So what I'm looking for is, some price action above this 21,850, and then if we get a daily close above that, targets are, the highs of that candle here. Um, that is pretty much it on the equities. Let me look at the Dow. I haven't looked at it yet. Similar, kind of trading around that bottom 50% of this. We know the Dow's been in a very heavy sell-off the entire month so far. A little bit of a bounce, but do we get continuation lower if we can't get any closes above this 50% area here? And while we're at it, let's just look at the Russell. Looks a little bit weaker, but on the daily in the Russell, we're kind of bouncing off that 200 moving average, which I mean, if we look back, that 200 moving average on the daily in the Russell has been a nice area to look for buys, maybe for swing trades. I know we talk a lot about day trading here, but if you zoom out, um, this 200 moving average has been a higher time frame support. Uh, so if I'm getting short in the Russell, I'm thinking about, how much room is there left to the downside before a higher time frame support, right? We are just less than 2% away from that 200-day moving average. Um, and we've seen it hold all year pretty much. So uh, just if I take a short in the Russell, thinking about that. Right. Let's go over to gold real quick. Gold, some of this. Anybody trade gold or trade any of the metals? I saw some platinum trades. I haven't looked at platinum in a little while, but it was our number 2 percentage mover to the upside. So I'm going to take a look at it today. Gold's kind of still staying under that 200 moving average on the 30-minute. We see the 20 and the 50 tried to cross above, but not really getting any momentum. And why don't I answer this question now? Can you please discuss about various moving averages, different color lines, and VWAP, anchored VWAP, and auto VWAP? So I don't use auto VWAP. I don't use the VWAP indicator. I use anchored VWAP, and the reason I use it is because I'm going to anchor multiple VWAPs throughout the session. But the moving averages that we have here, the yellow one is the 20 moving average, the purple is the 50, and the white one is the 200. Um, I got those from Coach Paul, working with Coach Paul for the past year. And the reason I like them is because you get a short time frame, medium time frame, and l- longer time frame moving average. And it helps to identify trend, right? The way Coach Paul is using him is on the 30-minute chart, if we are under the white line, which is the 200 moving average, he's looking to short that market. Does it mean a blind short just because we're under the 200? No, but he's not looking to buy it. He's looking for a good trade location to sell it. And then the same thing if we're above the 200 moving average and the 20 and the 50 are above that as well, then he's looking to buy it. Um, Personally, the way I trade and the way I teach traders is for me using VWAP and using it pretty much the same way, trying to identify trend uh, with VWAP if there is a trend at all. So for example, last night in gold we had this 30-minute opening range from the market open. I have this VWAP, which I'll make a red line because it's usually red. Uh, so what this tells me is from the time that this range was established, there was no trend, right? There was no trend outside of, sorry, there was no trend accompanied by volume, right? So price might have left the range, but volume didn't. So I'm considering this empty price action, and I'm actually looking to fade the moves when we get extended from the range, right? So price gets above here, 26.46 up near these highs. I would be looking for a somewhere to short gold up here. I think that's actually where the profits on this account came from. Was a short gold. Uh, and then, eventually we see volume, this VWAP line leave the range to the downside. Now that we're under it and we're starting to trend lower, again, I'm looking for places to short it. Now, trade location is always going to matter. I'm getting short gold because we're under VWAP. But if I get short here, then this is bad trade location, right? The reason I'm calling this bad trade location, we are so far away from VWAP that we know that there's the potential to retest or the reversion to VWAP. So if we're in a trending market, I want my trade entries to be as close as possible to VWAP because that gives me a better risk to reward on my trades. All good being late. Linus Rain, thank you for joining us. JD, have a good one. Happy holidays. Uh, So where do we sell in the VWAP at 9:30? I mean, if we go back to if you're talking about the equities, well, actually for that question, were you talking about the equities or are you talking about gold? Right. If we look at the equities today on the 30 minute, it didn't give you a signal to take that trade, right? On the 30 minute, it's saying fade the extremes, all markets. Okay, so that question is going to depend on what the markets are showing you at the time. When we get into the New York session open, right, that 9:30 Eastern time open, I'm going to go from a 30-minute chart to a 3-minute chart. Now, on the 3-minute, let's see if it gave me a signal. Here is the Nasdaq, the 3-minute. We're going to attach a VWAP to that. The first real signal didn't happen until here, right? Because all of these price left the range, but volume didn't. You see how we get this? So if I went just on price, and I shorted at 580 because we broke the opening range to the downside. Oh yeah, this looks like we're gonna trend lower. If I shorted here, I had a trade that was 20 points in my favor before it bounced back into the range, and hopefully I have more than a 70-point stop loss because I would have gotten stopped out, right? In this case, if I'm, this is preempting the trade. Now, could you be right? Could the market just continue to sell off? Yes, but the way I'm looking at this as a setup, this is probably a C plus if I'm going to take this short right here at best, right? Yeah, C plus at best because volume hasn't left the range. So trade micros, right? Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. You could trade micros and then go with a 100-point stop. But either way, right? Even with micros, I would consider this is not great trade location because of the potential that this move could just completely reverse and go the other way, right? Price went, but volume didn't. So there's nothing to even say at this point. There's nothing to say that this move was going to happen. Right. So, the first short signal really would have been right here where we get close to VWAP and we get a bounce back up to it. Um, and this is a decent trade, right? This is in 3 minutes, you have a 70-point trade to the downside in the NASDAQ just waiting for this test. Now, what I really like about this strategy is I could be completely wrong about the direction of the market, but if I wait and I'm patient on a trade entry, then I can, I'll take 70 points in the Nasdaq in 3 minutes and lock myself out for the day, right? And I don't need to do much more than that. But once we start to settle above that VWAP, then we can see, we change the trend. Um, can you try that on Friday open? Thank you for all you've done this year, Pistol Pete. Thank you. Happy holidays. Um, which do you prefer, the 30-minute VWAP breakout or the 3-minute VWAP breakout, or are you using them together? So I'm using 30 minutes for overnight sessions, and I'm using 3 minutes for I'm using 3 minutes for the New York session opens. And the reason I'm switching between the two is because for the New York session, we are getting more volume, so the happen a little bit faster. But I'm going 30 minutes for overnight and 3 minutes for uh, the New York session. What broker do I recommend for self-funded? I use AMP, but there's a ton of them out there. I use AMP and Tasty Trade right now. What is the source setting for your anchored VWAP? It's set to open, high, low, close divided by 4, and that is from Brian Shannon's Anchored VWAP book. If you haven't read that book, and you're interested in trading VWAP, I would definitely suggest it. All right. But let's show another example, right? Where here's a market that, the Nasdaq presented somewhat of a short trade today, but it wasn't the cleanest trade. Now, if we look at, and if Coach Hoop is watching, shout out to Coach Hoop. If we look at lean hogs, for example, this morning, this is a definitive. There's no question about where this market is going. Example, this is A plus right here. The market establishes a range. The angle of this VWAP looks like a ski slope, right? And it happens very early, right? Now, this is what Coach Paul and I are calling urgency. There's no guessing where this market is going. It's showing you that it's selling, right? So now I want to try to get in as close as possible to VWAP as I can on a short, and then hold it, right? And we can see when it's this dramatic, even when we get a bounce back up to VWAP, it holds, right? So even if you didn't catch this later in the day, there was an opportunity to sell it. The one thing about this is when, a move this dramatic happens, sometimes this is oh man, it left without me. How do I get into a move like this? It's difficult, right? It's difficult to do it because this is what we saw on FOMC day in the equities, right? Where there was liquidation. And when liquidation happens, uh, the the sellers don't care about a price, right? They just want to get all of their inventory off. So we're going to get quicker moves. So, any kind of relief bounce, and you can see in this case in lean hogs, it was, wasn't more than 10 ticks. Uh, you have to, just get in and still establish your risk. Now, where I would say on a trade like this, if I didn't get my short up here and I had to sell down here, if we get back above VWAP, I'm out. I'm out of the trade, and I will reassess if there's another opportunity. If the markets are going to continue to sell off, it'll give me another opportunity to get in, but I can't get short here, watch the market bounce back above VWAP, and hope that it's going to continue lower. And his royal says, and that's the 3 minute, so you don't have to wait too long to get confirmation as a day. Yeah, see, as a day trader, especially when we get into the New York session, I want as quick a confirmation as possible. Now, it's not always going to happen. We saw the Nasdaq, for example, the first couple of candles, and I think if you do it this way, right, if especially if you're trading the equities, if you don't get definitive, right, and I want to make it clear, this is definitive. This is not definitive, right? Where price leaves and right, this is the way we get to see the market. You see how in lean hogs, this VWAP was like in the corner of that box and was ready to go. It can be kind of deceiving if you because we don't get to see the charts like this, we get to see it like this, right? So this is not definitive. Price left, but you can't chase this unless it's clear that it's going, right? Because that is a very easy way to get caught in false breakouts, and we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Now, no trade that we put on is 100%, but there is a little bit of a difference in that pattern. Um, Let me see if there's another lean hogs example. So okay, here would be like, so somewhat definitive, right? It's starting to leave. Could you take this short? You could, but again, assessing how good of a job the market is doing what you want it to do. See how here it almost immediately stops. Once we get back above you up, and we said it right. If we get short down here, once we get back above, I have to start thinking about getting out of the trade, right? And this is why where this looked definitive, but nothing's 100%. So if this one was to turn and do the same thing, you have to get out, right? You can't hold on to it and say, well, you know, it looked good. Um, it could look good and then turn bad real quick, and you don't want to be part of that. At least I don't. but that's why we have stops, right? Have an idea of where you want to get out of the market, and if it presents different information to you, then you could always change your mind. We talked about gold, crude oil, crude worth talking about. We're still in the range in crude. Lows of that range anywhere, anywhere it bounces from. Maybe not trying to catch the low, but if you see this market kind of turn around, I would be looking at higher time frame charts if I'm trading crude, right? Probably nothing less than a 30-minute. Um, because if it turns around, right, where we're seeing it turn around at some of these extremes of the ranges, the one thing I wouldn't want to do is try to pick where that turn is going to be and then get stopped out. But once we see some of these turns, right, we see a let's say we waited for confirmation in this red candle right here. Uh, then we can, to a high probability, say that we're going to see the other side of the range and then take advantage of that part of the move. I even got caught a couple of times trying to say, oh yeah, this is the high of the range in crude as it's going up, and then getting stopped out or having to trade with a really wide stop, which I don't want to do that. So either trading micros or waiting for the market to turn and then setting your stops above the highs or lows of those turns. Um, Range bound traders, this is where you want to be going out to a daily. We can see this range that we've been in. It's presenting decent opportunities. I can't trade it. It does not fit with my trading style at all. Nat gas, on the other hand, does. Um, we've seen these expanded ranges in nat gas, presenting some really good opportunities to trade. I didn't trade it at all today. I traded gold and the Nasdaq. But I've seen it in the chat. A couple more traders talking about trading nat gas, and I think it's a great thing. It's paying attention to the markets that are presenting opportunity, which is what I think we should be doing. Right, I could either stare at one market every day and force it to give me an opportunity, or I could say, "Hey, I'm a trend trader. Let me trade what's trending." And of course, every market is going to have its own personality. It's going to have its own, news and things like that, and fundamental factors that affect it. But the technical patterns that we apply can fit anywhere. Um, and nat gas has just been a really nice trending market. Right. Any other questions you guys have, let me know. I'm probably going to go through one more market and then we'll get out of here. Nick Richardson, that's what I'm working on. Yeah. So, define the rules for the trade setup that you're looking for, right? That anchored VWAP leaving the opening range. Um, there's clearly defined rules for that trade. And now I just have to find the market that's presenting that trade. And I think when you have that, then you can do like a speed back test, just go through a bunch of different markets and say, hey, does it apply here? Does it apply here? And you'll find that it does, right? The same technical patterns, present themselves everywhere. And then it's, hey, how does this market move? Is it the Nasdaq and I can expect a pretty quick move in a couple of minutes, or is it corn and I need to put the trade on because it's presenting itself, but I need to hold it for 4 hours, right? So that's learning the market's personality, but it can apply really anywhere. Um, Being content with sitting on my hands and staying out of the market. Yeah, it's tough to do, right? Because you see everyone has a different strategy, so there's probably always a reason to put on a trade, but is there always a reason for you to put on a trade, right? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. And we don't have to. Coach Hoop needs to go. Nat gas looks exactly like the ES market today, exactly how the day started. Uh, let's see. I guess so, right? We had a sell off and then we bounced. Nat gas just didn't recover nearly as much, right? We closed this gap and just kept going. Um, right. Is 10% risk per trade of an account balance too much? 10% per trade is a lot, especially if you go with the Coach Paul suggestion of not losing more than 12% of your account in any given day. And, Coach Paul's not here, but something he says all the time is that 12% should not happen a lot, right? That is the worst case scenario. I'm not going to lose more than 12% of my account, which means on any given day, I should, be somewhere closer to 2, 3, 4% maybe. So 10% on one trade is a lot. And the thing that we hear a lot of times when we say that is, well, how do you trade these small accounts? You got to trade small, right? Until you can build a bit the balance in the account to trade more size. Um, 10% for any given trade is a lot, right? I think really most traders trading with Topstep should be trading in micros. We do have traders that have huge account balances um, with the same accounts that everyone has access to, uh, but I think majority of traders would see more progress if they traded micros and just accepted that that's where they need to be for those accounts. When price moves back to the range, do you wait till a candle closes outside of the range for entry? Do you wait till a candle closes outside of the range for entry? Let me see what market gave us a pretty good setup today. Mm, He's something trying to find a different market than the ones we always talk about. Um, so here, for example, we'll just go to the Nasdaq because it's what we talk about all the time. So here, for example, this isn't the greatest trade, but I don't always wait. I don't always wait. Let's say in this case that this VWAP was 40 points lower, right? So it was down here. If we get this test and VWAP is down here, I will take the trade early, right? If we get a test into this range, I will take it early, um, accepting the fact that I might be early on the trade, but I will take it early, right? Kind of hesitated to say that because you want to avoid preempting the move, right? But if you have, for me, if I have, three of the four confirmations and price is still in the range, then I will take the trade a little early. Sometimes I'm taking this trade, right at 50% of the range and risking the other side. I'll usually do that if volume looks like it's going to leave, but it hasn't yet, right? So in this case, and again, this is this is somewhat trading on feel, right? Where if I feel the market is going to continue lower, right? Maybe I'm looking at a higher time frame. If I feel the market is going to continue lower, I may take this trade at 50% of the opening range and risk the other side. But full transparency, that trade has a lower probability than waiting for confirmation, right? This trade doesn't work out nearly as much as waiting for that confirmation. I may get more points out of it, but I am accepting the fact that this is probably a 60% probability instead of a 80%. Right. Lido, good morning. Welcome. Well, welcome. Uh, we had a nice nap. Uh, all right. Any other questions? But Oakland Torch, that's a good question, right? Because we talk about it. It's like, oh yeah, hypothetically this does this, and then you get in the trade, but it's like, okay, where do you enter? And the more I take those trades, the more I'll show executions on them and show you guys exactly where I enter because it's not always perfect, right? Trading is not always perfect. Sometimes you do have to, shoot from the hip a little bit, but I also think that's earned. Where if you aren't seeing the numbers that you want to see, aren't seeing the results you want to see, then you should be waiting for, you know, close to 90% confirmation of a move. Now, if you trade the same move over time and you can identify the pattern and you say, hey, I'm early, but this is to a high likelihood going to do this, then you can, afford to. Here's a perfect example actually here. Here's micro Bitcoin on the, actually, this didn't really get a great retest of the range. You got to test the VWAP, right? Damn, this is a really nice trade. This is micro Bitcoin on the equity open, 3-minute opening range, same thing. Um, you could see something like this, right? Where nope, you have to wait for confirmation. Got to wait for the candle to close. VWAP closes. I probably shouldn't be entering anywhere above 95,000. I probably shouldn't be entering, right? Could I? I could, but I probably shouldn't be, right? And that's really the best way I can say that. Um, is there a typical long bias exuberance for Christmas Eve? No. If you look at last year's Christmas Eve in the equities, it was a the market sold off. Peter Tuckman was actually on Topstep TV today and saying there's an actual date for the Santa rally, and it's after Christmas, right? So the day after Christmas is when that rally happens. Last year, Christmas Eve, we had some pretty nice sell-offs. uh, you put your fibs on daily candles or higher time frames. I will look at them on the daily candles, right? If I'm looking at fibs on the daily candles, I'm looking for higher time frame levels like this 50% area. And I don't use traditional fibs with the intermediate levels. I'm just looking at 0, 50%, and 100%. But I will put these on daily candles to get some higher time frame areas of interest. Your setup has got me to 53K and a 50K combine. That's awesome to hear. Um, and shout out to you for implementing the information um, that we're giving out here. I think anything we do, anything you hear on Top Step TV, it's up to you to you know determine how any of those strategies are going to fit into your trading style. So that's awesome to hear. I've heard a couple of traders say that actually, where they started combines and only traded that strategy and have seen some success in it, and that says a lot more about your trading than it does the strategy, because you have to find where you feel comfortable implementing it. And yes, I always put the range. I identify the range on every opening candle for the market that I'm going to trade. But any other questions? Any other questions? If not, I'm kind of done going through the markets. Um, Remember, tomorrow is a half day. Top Step TV is going to be off for the next 2 days. I do believe Dakota is doing slow markets tonight, but then after that, we're going to be off. We'll be back for At the Buzzer on Thursday. So if you are going to trade, tonight into tomorrow, if a setup presents itself, if and you're at the charts, take the setup. Always manage your risk. That's most important. Um, is there a video that recaps your strat on Discord? So the videos that I have on Discord are a lot more tape reading based, because that's when I'm actively trading. That's what I'm looking at, right? I'm looking at time and sales to determine. I'm looking at time and sales. I'm looking at the depth of market to determine how the market is trading around certain prices. Those videos are more tape reading based. But if you want this strategy specifically, I think the best example was slow markets from October 3rd. Did a takeover for Dakota, and we talked a lot about this strategy. So I would definitely take a look at that video. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Right. I think that is it on the questions. Want to thank everyone for joining today. I know it is a slow week. So Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever holidays you celebrate, happy holidays. And if you don't celebrate any, enjoy some time off of the markets. It's going to be definitely slow on Wednesday because markets are closed. But tomorrow with the half day, enjoy some time off, do something fun for yourself, spend some time with family or just away from the charts, and get ready for going into the new year. Now, I don't like to make New Year's resolutions for my trading and things like that because if you want to make changes to your trading, why not start today? But think about how you did in 2024, as we come into the close of the year, how you did in 2024, what you have learned, what you want to take into 2025, and what you want to leave in your trading, right? What you want to leave behind and say, hey, I'm no longer going to do this because it's, you know, preventing me from seeing the progress that I want. Or, hey, I'm going to focus on doing this because I know that's what it takes for me to be a better trader, and go from there. So thank you everyone for joining. We will see you all on Thursday. Making millions in 2025. Hey, Mo, that's a good goal, right? Shoot for the stars. Shoot for the stars. And a million might not be the stars, right? Depending on who you are. But shoot for the stars, and if you get 50% of that goal, uh that's a great year. Resolution is to beat Dakota on the leaderboard. I'm gonna tell him you said that, Lito. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. We will talk to you all on Thursday. Trade well, manage your risk, and we'll see you then.